I mentioned UCAS right at the very beginning, how important they are. So can we give Katie a big round of applause?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to the event today. I'm taking, leading on from the presentation from Patrick and Louise. I thought it would be helpful to introduce UCAS and some of the work that we're doing behind the scenes to understand student sentiment. And we've done some work specifically for today to help you understand how students are seeing and perceiving sales, specifically sales as a career. So what I thought I would start with was just, well, you're probably thinking, why is UCAS here? Aren't you an admissions service? And I know you'll all be thinking, I've came through UCAS myself. My children are currently applying through UCAS. My godson has just got a place in Bristol. And so why are UCAS here? And actually, what I wanted to do as part of the conversation today is actually sort of do a bit of myth busting, get my teeth in the right way, and actually just show you some of the work that we do beyond just enabling people to access traditional taught higher education. So here's a slide that I've grabbed from a recent slide deck that we've just produced together. And I think Phil mentioned this earlier in his intro, because I was here at the back just being mic'd up, but UCAS actually has every year 1 million new students on its databases. So we connect with practically all the school leavers across the 4 nations. And one way or another, whether they apply to do traditional taught undergraduate degrees, or whether they're just looking through the website to understand whether higher education is an option for them, they will leave a footprint with us, with UCAS, with one way or another. And I think the thing there to notice also is that in terms of trust, I'm super proud of this, but in terms of trust, UCAS is as trusted as the NHS and more trusted than the BBC. So we're a supremely trusted brand. We are a charity. I'm sure you probably all know that. And the charity is such that our charitable objective is to enable people to access higher education. It doesn't necessarily mean traditional taught full-time undergraduate degrees. It's actually just we're out there trying to enable more people to reach that, and which is why the Apprenticeships program is so close to my heart, having myself come from the northeast of England, which actually currently only has a ratio of 30% of school leavers go to university compared to London, which is 52% of school leavers go to university. Why is that? I cannot believe for 1 minute that the London kids are any more clever than those out of the northeast, but it's just the regional bias and opportunity and advantage. So some of the work that we're doing at UCAS, any funding that we get, any media income that we make, is all going back in to support leveling up and widening access across the country. So that's the key thing there. The second thing about this slide is that it's a takeaway for you who are in the business of thinking about employing people and actually persuading and influencing young people about maybe your companies or jobs, is that actually when people are making sort of big life decisions, they are 75% more likely to try new things. So what we've got with the student market, so the school leavers, is that they're 75% more likely to try new things. So if you were working for a brand, new brands like, I don't know, like Dyson or Samsung, those kids are more likely to try at that stage. They're much more experimental when they're making these big life-changing choices. So this is important for those of you who are trying to recruit people into sales, because what I'm kind of saying here is that they're just more open-minded at that age, at their decision. So UCAS, why are we here? Well, our overall mission is to make choices clearer. And those are choices, obviously, we're really heavily indebted into the higher education pathways route, but also, if you were to have time to have a look at our website, you'll find that there's a whole host of information which we'll go through. I'm not going to today, but we go through, I'll come on to that in a minute, but we go through courses, city guides, subject guides, and we also do careers profiles. And there's a whole host of information which I think you'll find interesting even if you have got a godson or a niece or a nephew who's going to go to university or a child of your own. But not least, what I'm going to reach out to you and ask you is that if you are really going to take some action that Patrick was asking for around encouraging more people to come into sales, then collectively, yourselves, ourselves, and the training providers can do an amazing job, but we need to work in collaboration to raise the profile of sales and apprenticeships as careers. And we can start the journey with those people from a very young age. So we were connecting with school kids from the age of 11 now. And the Careers Finder, I think I put a link into the deck, but the Careers Finder is very jolly. Unfortunately, it did identify that I was okay in marketing, and unfortunately, because at one point I thought I might have been a librarian. But it's you can maybe do and find out how many of you are actually in the right careers according to the careers profile. So then just a couple of notes about, what student sentiment's doing. Well, of course, 1 and 2 are suffering anxiety from post-COVID. You've got nearly 20% of them are saying that they don't really trust social media, which, comes as no surprise, really, given everything that's been happening of late. And then this last point is the one I obviously love, is that more students would trust UCAS with their data than their own high street bank. I mean, I suppose they haven't got a lot of money anyway, but the point is it's one of reference, isn't it? So I've covered off a few of those points anyway, but the last one there about UCAS, what are we actually doing? UCAS, because we have access to data and because we have access to students, and we're running focus groups, we run surveys, and all the time we're pulling together a deeper understanding around what students are thinking and doing on their journey through higher education choices. And it's okay if they don't choose higher education, by the way, because actually what you might find is, and I think Louise referenced this in the apprenticeships, but actually in the apprenticeships market, the majority of people in apprentices are over 24 years old. So you've got people who maybe choose to come into education routes as they're getting older. So we understand about the information, advice and guidance that's required, and also the data and data analysis of those people. This is the hub I referred to. I just took a screen grab the other day, and it says that they're unsure of what to do with your life or your next steps. Use our information on careers, apprenticeships and universities to explore what routes are available and which is the right one for you. And now we've got these guides that are actually, I just had a look at Liverpool the other day. I must made a mental note to go there for the weekend because it looks very, very jolly. We've got sort of very, very, very interactive, experiential bits of information on our site, and we can help you if you're wanting to promote, I'll come on to this in a minute, but careers. On the careers quiz, as I said, it'll tell you what you want to do, but then we've got jobs and careers and employer profiles that these people can look at and self-serve and start to get ideas of what they might want to be when they finish their studies. Those are just some links. But I think this is also a really interesting side is, so who is influencing these people about their career choices? And of course, we all know that friends and family, you're forever saying what you're going to be when you grow up. But actually, I thought the most interesting point there was, but the most popular form of influence for them is from the employers. So just around the room, by way of show of hands, how many of you are actually engaging with under 18-year-olds at the moment? So maybe 3 or 4 out of 80. So with that in mind, I just want you to have that as a takeaway, because it clearly is, the young people are really excited. It makes them much more aspirational if they've been approached by a Samsung or a Barclays or a Robert Dias even, or, Greggs, brands that they'll see on the high street every day. Nando's, I think they particularly like. A degree still remains very much part of their plan, and increasingly we're starting to see a trend towards valuing degree apprenticeships. But again, as Louise said, there's still a load of work to be done within the secondary schools around destigmatizing the apprenticeships route. If another person says to me, and this really gets on my nerves, if another person says to me, oh, that's fine, because if they don't get into university, they can go and do a degree apprenticeship. Well, I don't know about you, but I think doing a degree apprenticeship is a lot harder than doing a straight degree, because you've got to earn while you learn, and it's only 20% of the time off the job. So they're still expected to do their full role as well as study. So I have to stop that and nip that in the bud whenever I hear that particular point. However, currently, as we stand in 2022, there still is a preference for traditional degrees. But to Louise's question earlier, we now survey all the applicants for undergraduate, and we found that over the last 2 years, there's been a 150% increase in kids who want to understand more about apprenticeships. So at the moment, almost 75% of people who are applying for university also want to have more information about degree apprenticeships. So this is particularly now looking at sales. The blue box, I just need to start with that. Only one degree in the country that's got sales in it. My team pulled this together for me. One, Cardiff Met. Come on. We need you to be lobbying the universities to show that there's a demand for sales degrees. I think that was my dinner party conversation last weekend. Did you know? But the other thing that's interesting about this down here is these bars. I mean, it's a bit sort of researchy, but there, 180,000 students enrolled last year for a degree in business administration and management. There were nearly 25% equivalent, 46,000 also enrolled in an apprenticeship, a field related to business and administration. So what's interesting about that, though, is that there's only two fields there, ICT and business, which is about 25% of the total, as it were, of total undergraduate enrollments. But then you've got down here, health and medicine, just less than 10% of students applying for medical or nursing apprenticeships. There's a degree apprenticeship now to become a doctor, medical degree. That's the latest one that's been announced. Anyway, and 70 apprenticeship sales rolled on Find an Apprenticeship service. So they're out there. We just need to encourage more people to think about pathways through. Then this slide is letting you see what degrees were the most popular degrees for students who expressed an interest in sales. I don't suppose it comes as any surprise that just over 40,000 were in business management. Then you've got social sciences, but I was quite impressed with the design and creative and performing arts. So you wouldn't necessarily expect to have done a degree in design and creative and then moved into sales as a function. And then you've got biological and sports sciences. Funnily enough, I was just talking to a chap the other day about that I was presenting here, and he said he did biology in Newcastle, actually, as it happens, and he's now head of sales for Foxtons, London estate agents. And he'd never thought about sales, but he did a profile when he's at uni, and they said he was really good with people. So that's where he ended up. So he dropped the lab and went outside. But this is the point, isn't it? Is that why are people not considering sales as a degree? And there you go, 4% of the people that we've surveyed have said that they might be interested in a career in sales. 10% of them, marketing, advertising, PR. They've sort of hold their shoulders much higher on that. And that's just really reiterating the fact that the degrees that they're most likely to do that will go into a field in sales are in business and business studies, basically. So why do students interested in a sales role? So that very small percentage who are actually saying that they're interested in sales, why do they go to university at all? Well, guess what? I mean, I just had to pull this one out. 58% of them said that they wanted a bit more money. So they wanted to earn more money in the future. So they know that sales has got some as a lucrative career. And they're going to university to develop the skills, which I thought was positive because people don't often think about going to university to develop skills. They think about it, having knowledge. And then to get a better job, and then just go to university so I can work out what I want to be when I finish. So let's move on. So UCAS applicants were interested in a sales role were less certain about what they wanted to do after university. So only 32% of those who went into sales said, I know exactly what I want to do, which compares to the second bullet there, which is, but of the other career areas, nearly half of them knew exactly what they wanted to do. So again, it's just, I think, showing all the time that there's this really big opportunity to super promote the sales as a career. In fact, Dr. Phil was telling me just before this conference started that Consalia have got stats that say 10% of the population have jobs in sales. It's population, wasn't it? Because I thought it was people in work.
It's 5% of the population, actually,
5%.
are in sales. It's a huge number.
It's a massive number.
Yeah.
It's a massive number when you look at how...
not just working.
Yeah. I mean, particularly when you're looking at how few people are actually coming through saying, I would like to have a job in sales. And they all end up in sales. So what's going wrong? And, again, I'm just going to reach out to you. What are you going to do about this? Because there are, every company has a sales function practically one way or another, whether it's overt or covert. Anyway, so we're just going to look at a few questions around what do students look for, what does an ideal working day look like, and what do they expect in terms of salary. I'm sure some of this, I hope none of this is a big surprise to you, but the positive corporate brand reputation, 82% of the students that we surveyed said that working for a reputed brand was really super important. This point that stood out for me was how important progression and reward on merit was. So 76% of them saying they wanted to have a performance based on performance. And then what was the last point? 90%, 9 out of 10 saying that progression was important for them. So they want to be, and this is from people who didn't necessarily consider a career in sales. And then job security. And I think the job security question probably swayed a little bit at the moment because of the post-pandemic and all the economic factors that we're seeing. But notwithstanding that, they want a collaborative workforce, they want to play as part of a team, and they want to work in a really good culture. So our own variety, by the way, don't just give them the photocopying, but just not the same job. I think that was my day, was just the photocopying. And then where are they finding information from? Well, we've got a careers finder on our site that Phil talked about that earlier. 86% of people are looking through that. Only 35% through LinkedIn. I'm not going to do a pitch for LinkedIn, but I thought that was quite low. And then just over half from the employer's website. But I think the thing about the employer's website is they have to know the employers are recruiting for them to go to the employer's website. So there's a bit of piece of work to do there just to raise the profile, because actually what you find is that, particularly from the disadvantaged areas, they have no clue about who the employers are. So I think UCAS's job is very much to promote the world of opportunity for these people, and to raise the profile of some of the employers who are looking for people like them. So salary expectations. So you've got here, the blue line is the salary expectation of graduates thinking about jobs and sales, and the red line is the profile of graduates in all other job functions. So you can see they're pretty well matched, except for at the lower end, where I think they must be the people who are doing temporary type of, casual work, expecting a salary of less than 15,000, I'm sorry. And then I quite like the ambition of those over 40,000 years. I want to earn more than 40,000 when I graduate. I quite like that. So I was amused at that when I saw that. And then again, in the apprenticeships, there you see the salaries are much narrower band from about 7.5K to 22, which is probably in line with the others. So in summary, I've got a few summary slides there, but I just wanted to, I'll come back to that in the very end. So in summary then, sort of the key takeaways there is that, think about the employers as being a really important influencer for these young people. The degree remains a really important part of the career plan. I think Patrick and Louise are talking about training and degree apprenticeships. I mean, people are wanting to progress and learn, and if you can wrap that with credit-based modules, and they're happy because they've got credit learning in the bag. And then, this thing about sales across different functional areas, across different types, levels is so important. And then, they're wanting, it's just the salary expectation. These people are wanting to do well, and I think that those who are interested in a career in sales, have got great futures ahead of them, because clearly they're thinking and planning, and they've got this understanding of growth, progression, reward, recognition, a lot of really great values, as well as obviously they've got to have the interpersonal skills and the sales skills. So I just wanted to sort of more or less leave it there, except I thought I should recapitulate. Can't believe I said that word just then. recapitulate on a point that I think Patrick was making about how people say I think you just said we fell into sales. And that seems to be anecdotally, and I'm sure you'd all agree, how quite a few people get into that job. And I just want to leave you with some how can we, based on the two, Louise's conversation, Patrick's conversation, and mine, which is how can we change the image of sales from an earlier age all the way through? How can we fill the 50,000 vacancies that Louise mentioned at the beginning? How can we encourage more students and young people and more mature people as well to think about the skills that they bring as well as the knowledge that they need? How can you help to raise the profile of your company and within it? Finally, and obviously from me, and how can you work with UCAS to achieve all of those how cans? So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, please stay.
I'm sure that many of us have got some questions we'd like to put of Katie at this point. Hello, Steve from BT. I suppose I'm interested. I have a son just going through UCAS now, so it's more about the timing than anything else. With apprenticeships, early learning for employers, typically that's around about sort of the October time when it goes to market. So are we missing a trick by pushing everything, if you like, to a certain timeline? So if the colleges are now looking at UCAS, how does that link to apprenticeships? And should we be considering apprenticeships within the colleges, the secondary schools earlier?
Yeah, so I'm just going to replay that question a little bit back. You're talking about the timing of application for the sort of the bifurcated route, either going to traditional undergraduate taught in a university or thinking about applying for apprenticeships.
Yeah, it just seems to be slightly out. It's a possibility to miss an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And put your money down, let's say, on a university route, and possibly then there's no second viewing, there's no return.
Yeah, so we're at UCAS, we're part of the work that we're doing currently and will be sort of emerging over the next couple of years is to encourage applicants to thinking about traditional undergraduate universities to simultaneously be applying to for a job as an apprenticeship role. Currently, if you look at the way the degree apprenticeships are served, there is more that come up through the summer, so post-May, June time through the summer period. But you're right in that because they're jobs, the jobs are coming up all the time. So you could end up in a situation where you have actually applied to university and started the course and see jobs coming up thereafter. And that's why I think it's really important that we do more to raise the opportunities of what might be out there sooner with kids in school. So from, I guess, year 10, 11, 12, certainly GCSE year 11, there should be being presented with opportunities around the future could be going to university or taking a degree apprenticeship. And then they would need to start looking fairly quickly into the sixth form and certainly into the upper sixth or year 13 now. But it's emerging. And you know, we can't, I don't think any employer in the room would for 1 minute want to say that they've got all their jobs being advertised in one hit. And many of the providers, I mean, Middlesex included, Middlesex is running police constable degree apprenticeships, and they'll have the universities that they're working with will recruit 3 times a year onto the police constable degree apprenticeship program. So, yeah, there's never going to be one time, but I just think the young people need to be looking out much earlier, and we for one will not be saying it's one thing or the other. You know, the young people can be applying for both simultaneously and then making a decision therein.
Thank you.
Hi, it's James from Hewlett Packard. Thanks for
Thanks for the discussion there. I just wondered, do you have any stats on work experience? The number of kids that are going through work experience and exposed to business sales in particular? Because I feel like there must be a far higher number of those sorts of people that then express an interest to going into a career.
Well, this is a great question. The stats are that if people have taken work experience either through school and or as part of their degree, they are significantly more likely to come out with a 2-1 or a first. And they are, again, significantly more likely to be employed by, if they're doing it through university, the employer that has provided them with the work experience. In terms of we're moving, if you look at the jobs board, we're looking to post now a number of work experience vacancies actually through the UCAS Careers Finder. And when I looked the other week, I think we had 283 vacancies just for work experience. And my team told me, I was like, whoa, is that all? But it's the wrong time of year. Clearly, a lot of that comes up for the summer. So I've set them some targets for next year. So as a result, I was like, okay, we need zeros added onto the end. But do you know what? I think we all need to work together to, if you as employers are keen to offer work experience, then, can you give us those job opportunities to post? Because it's a great question. Yes, the students are much more likely to be successful. They're much more likely to be confident. They're much more likely to have had experience than both in the function they may do, or they may decide that it's absolutely not for them. So I would say, and that links into the whole apprenticeship route. Just a plug for apprenticeship. So if you have got children going through degrees, I think Louise mentioned this, with recession and cost of living, why would you not do an earn while you learn, and where the apprenticeships are available in a region for an employer that you're interested in? It's not for everybody. It really isn't. But, I think our generation tend to stigmatize degree apprenticeships because we haven't been brought up with them, and we're still of that, Ken, that, first in family to go to university. Whereas now I think we've just got to move on and let these people not come out with a load of debt, but get out 3 years worth of experience. One of my favorite stories from Middlesex was in construction, and we were doing bite size. We had Robert Halfon come to visit. And so we had all these sort of apprentices come and talk, sit around table, the sort, you prep them before to say, don't swear, but you can say anything else. And there was this lad who'd come down from the Midlands, and he was hilarious. And Robert Halfon was saying, so tell me this degree in construction that you've been doing, how have you found it? And he said, oh, well, I loved it. I hated sixth form, I hated studying. I've loved this degree apprenticeship because I've been earning money and I've been doing my studies, and I'm in with these other 15 people on this cohort. And he said, well, I've just graduated and I've saved up enough money for a house and I'm going to get engaged. And we're like, oh, God, and Rob, oh, yes, it's really good. And he says, and do you know the best thing? Like, is there better than all of this? I thought the best thing is that my friend Mark has just graduated from university and he's going to be working for me. I just love that, so it couldn't be any better. He had no debt, and he had the debt, Mark had the debt. It was just hilarious. I just wanted to laugh out loud. And that's the sort of story that makes me laugh, and that's why I think it's important. But, in brackets, apprenticeships aren't for everybody, but I think we need to have people reconsider them in a very serious way. And I would like you as employers, actually, my ask is that we have a really good paper. Some of my team may be able to give you the links to it, but we're just presenting a journey to 1 million, which is that, by 2030, there'll be over 1 million applicants for university education. And, that recession thing that's going on at the moment, universities aren't investing in expanding their sort of physical places. So, if you think that there was just shy of 400,000 people placed at university this year, you're never going to get 1 million in the next 5 or 6 years. Oh, are you coming back with that?
Sorry, can we have the microphone?
I thought we were going to have some heckling there.
It was very tempting. Very tempting to heckle. Sorry.
For which reason we need more degree apprentices in the market.
Okay. Sorry, Amanda Crawford-Lee, Chief Exec of UVEC. I want to contradict you because actually apprenticeships in England are for everybody.
For everybody, yes.
They are, because they're all age, all stage. You said apprenticeships aren't for everybody, but actually in terms of perception and government policy, they've now been opened up into the majority of the professions, including sales. And although there may well be a perception that we've had a middle-class land grab, and actually, degree apprenticeships are now sort of the preserve of those kids who have, and would ordinarily perhaps applied for a more traditional undergraduate sort of place. I think we've got to recognise that we are creating rich impressions for underrepresented, underserved groups. So they are for everybody, and I think we need to remember that.
So, Mandy, thank you very much for that. I totally 100% agree with you. My point was really that some people who may be very academic may prefer a pure academic and go on and become a professor, like some esteemed colleagues in the room here at universities. But I think the options are there for everybody.
Ivan Roach, Open Data Belfast. So I'm from Belfast, Northern Ireland. We've got the issue where our university places are actually capped because of the subsistence that's given to university places. So from the point of view of business, I suppose I'm reinforcing both points, is we're actively going out to sixth formers to encourage them into the apprenticeship programs so that we can actually keep them at home because we've been finding a huge brain drain over the last few years. So that's where we're welcoming the apprenticeship programs.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that's really good to hear. Yes, Northern Ireland always does present another challenge.
Katie, if any companies here who are looking for sales apprentices to go on, how do they connect with UCAS if they wanted help from UCAS? How would they do that?
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, that's a great question. Just to say that we do work with a number of companies at the moment who are looking to recruit particular type styles of graduate, and we can connect. We have the facility to connect through some of the marketing and sales team. We have basically a marketing service that will enable companies to reach out to the types of student learner, post 18 graduate that they're interested in raising awareness of their roles with. We also have the facility to promote jobs, your employer profile through our websites. We're looking to get more information around raising job function profiles through videos, blogs, sort of stand up 2 minutes from employers saying what the roles are and why they're great. If you can connect to us through the website, and or you can just contact me at k.bell@ucas.ac.uk. Phil, I'm sure, will give you the number. And I can pass you on to the right person to understand how you can connect with the student market more effectively.
Very good. Thank you.